Welcome. This is Hugh Massie, the chairman and founder of DNA Behaviour International. And today I'm delighted to have with me Donna Peters from the Me Suite to do an identity interview. Donna and I have been working together for the past 2 years or so since she retired from big corporate life as a senior partner at Accenture. So welcome, Donna.
Thank you for having me, Hugh. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to spend time with you. So, Donna, why don't you just tell me a little bit about your career path and your journey to becoming a leader?
Okay. I like to think about the moments that have mattered the most. The first one was just growing up from 0 to 20 years old. I grew up in a family business. My parents owned a small manufacturing business, and I think that shaped a lot about the way I think about leading and business and values. And then I spent my 20s, I call it my creative 20s, acting professionally. And that's how I made a living for about 10 years. And I then decided to go to business school. I had an itch to scratch. I knew I had some business sensibilities in me somewhere. And I went to business school. And when I exited there, I started a 20-year career in strategy and management consulting. And as you said, retired as a senior partner from Accenture in 2020. And that's when I launched the business that I have now. I went back to school again, and I got an executive coaching diploma and all the required certifications, et cetera. And that is now my full-time business. And I hope to be doing that for the next 20 years.
So is there in your journey, which has been a very interesting one, because not many people go from being part of a family business to an acting career to then corporate strategy life inside a large firm and get to the top. But is there a pivotal moment in your career?
A pivotal moment. I can have more than one, right?
Yeah, you can have many.
Okay. I did not know to call these people mentors because I didn't have that word at the time. But there were these moments in my life when someone approached me and helped illuminate to me where I had a differentiating skill. And even as early as in high school and in college, these were leaders in the schools who approached me and were helping me realize that I was differentiated in my ability to communicate and influence. And that manifested in things like debates and presentations and performing in theater that I later pursued in college. And again, another person who approached me in college, another professor, helping me really realize where I had a differentiating skill and ability around this idea of communication and influence and giving presentations, et cetera. So fast forward, even inside one of the largest corporations in the world, I started to learn that my differentiation in that type of corporate environment as a leader was around communication and influence, even to the point that I became known for a little phrase that I coined, and I call it business theater. And it's the fact that everything that you and I do in the way we are engaging with people, we are giving presentations to win client work, or we are communicating with a customer, or we are deciding how to give difficult feedback to an employee. All of those moments require intention in the way that we communicate and in the way that we think really thoughtfully about how we're being perceived and the impact that we're leaving. And so I coined that and now even use that in my current day practice, this whole concept of business theater. And I think that we all do it every single day. We need to be doing it with more thoughtfulness. And I was just very lucky to have found that intersection that was allowing me to live and make a living at the intersection of these two strengths.
Because it's a very different path that you've had to becoming a senior leader of, a billion-dollar or multi-billion-dollar business like Accenture. So when you were in your father's business, were you deploying your communication talents at that time? And I know you like to educate people. Was that something that was happening at that time as well?
I know communication for sure. Even as probably as young as 12 or 13 years old, I was answering the phones when customers were calling. And I even remember one time, my grandmother made a comment to me. She was visiting us, and we were in the manufacturing shop, and she saw me answer the phone and talk to customers, and she said, "Donna, I think every customer thinks that they're the only one we have, because you're just so nice to them and treat them so special." So I've always thought about that she had this impression that when I was engaging with customers, I made them feel like they were the only customer that we had. So there must be something there that I just have had a natural affinity for. But I also was on the floor in the shop with drill presses and staple guns and sweeping and getting shipments ready for the 18 wheelers to come pick them up. So I got dirty there too, and was often working with people who will not be or would not have graduated from high school. And so I watched some really interesting, important learning moments there too. Even one that I cannot get out of my mind, when my father was teaching a 19-year-old man how to read a calendar because he had never been taught. And so my father also did not finish college until he was in his 50s. So I do think that there's something about the education component that's been really important to me also, that has led me back to school several times.
But also having to communicate with people in the factory and getting them to be motivated and wanting to be there,
right,
is important as well.
Right. Yeah, I think very proudly about the many lives that I think my father had a chance to help through the jobs that he created for them.
And when you were getting influenced by these school leaders or school influencers about acting, you didn't just have an ordinary acting career. Because most people sort of think of, when you say acting, going to Hollywood or being on stage shows, but it wasn't quite all of that. You were doing, what sort of acting were you doing, and communication were you doing in your training and in the first 10 years of your career?
Yeah, so to make a living at it, you do a pretty diverse portfolio of things, but I was more of a stage actor. And so I would travel around to regional theaters, regional professional theaters. And so for anyone listening that might be in the Atlanta area, the Alliance Theater, or anyone that might be in the Chicago area, the Guthrie, those types of professional theater companies, I would have gone around on contracts there doing shows. But it was supplemented with other things that are called industrials. Industrials are training videos. So if you've ever gone to training and seen actors in videos, that could have been me at some point. When you're on the airplane and they show the video of put the mask on yourself before assisting others, those are the types of things that I did. And I also did a George Lucas movie and a play with Joyce Carol Oates. I had a one-woman show off Broadway for a year. In New York City, where I wrote and produced a show and performed it there for a year. So it was a big variety of things to make a living doing it. You can't really be completely picky. So.
But then something happened at sort of that end of that 10-year period where you went back to college.
Yeah.
And started, to go down the business path.
Yeah. And the best way to explain it is for anyone to think about, have they really stayed at the exact same thing for 10 years? Because for me, maybe it's different if you become an actor and you get big and famous and you're walking down the red carpet every spring. But one way to make a living acting is to do the same thing over and over. I literally played the exact same role in the exact same play for an entire year in different theaters. And it's a wonderful way to make a living doing theater, but you can imagine over time, it just gets a little old, as we all sometimes get bored and restless with any job and career. So I really felt that I had done my thing and that I could proudly say that I gave that a good go. And at the same time, I really felt I had been running a business through that whole process. I'm technically self-employed, right? I had an agent and I'm a personal brand and all of that. And maybe there was a little something in the back of my mind for my family business that made me think, I really think that I could be effective in business. And so I guess that combined with a little bit of boredom led me to business school. I did truly believe, rightly or wrongly, I did believe I needed to rebrand in some way because I didn't believe I could get the business level responsibility I thought I could handle just by saying I had been a professional actor for 10 years. I don't know if I'm right or wrong about that. I didn't do a research project, but in my mind, that was important to me. I knew I had stuff to learn, number one, but I also thought that was a chance to rebrand and hit a reset button on a career switch.
Yeah, I think it provides a credibility by having the degree or the letters after your name from from having gone to business school.
Right.
And then really it's about how you redeployed your talents.
Yeah.
In communication.
Yeah.
Inside the corporate.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Because really the talents were about influence. And when we look at your business DNA profile, you're an initiator who's very take charge, commanding, and also creative.
Yeah.
Wanting to influence people. That's where it all comes from. That's that's the strongest profile in the business DNA system that you could get around influence.
Okay.
And then your creativity is also fuels that a little bit. I think when it comes down to dealing with new ideas, and getting them communicated, and being a visionary, they're strong areas for you.
Yeah.
But did you find though that when you worked at Accenture and you were a rising leader, you go in there maybe not at the bottom, but somewhere near the bottom, and you've got to rise through the ranks. So your communication skills helped you leap up. But did you bring others with you because you taught them this concept of business theater?
Yeah. The thing that the way that I would have been able to bring people up with me is if you have a business theater mindset and you're constantly thinking about communicating from the other person's point of view, what do they need to see? What type of information do they need to hear in order to make the decision they need to make? There's this byproduct of that approach, which is everyone feels special. Because everyone feels that they're part of the mix. And for clients, I'm sure that helped me tremendously because they felt understood and they felt that I was in service of their objectives. But for people that had to work for me, I'm hoping that they felt that was also allowing them to exercise their own strengths or to feel that they were part of something kind of exciting. I'm hoping that is true, but because that was certainly my intention.
But when we talk about business theater, that's really creating the environment for all those things to happen.
That's right.
Because they don't just happen.
Right. Yeah, no, it's very planful. I mean, even from now you're going to start to get a little peek into my head and think I'm insane, but I am so deliberate about the experience that's going to happen when people come together. Everything from worrying about, I'm about to share some material, some data with a team of 5 people. I will obsess about, do all 5 of those people have the same level of understanding when they come into the meeting? Because I don't want person number 1 to have already seen all of it and person number 5 to have seen none of it. And then you have a complete disconnect in the conversation because number 5 feels left out and number 1 looks like a know-it-all. So I obsess about those things as a leader because I think it impacts the experience that we have when we are leaders. And basically leaders are problem solvers. And it's really hard to problem solve and be collaborative if you aren't really thinking about what's the most effective way for people to consume information so that they can contribute to new ideas. So I get very, like a director and like a stage manager would, if you were running a play, I orchestrate interactions, important business interactions in that way.
Yeah, so the setting is very important, knowing who's in the room, what information have they got.
Yeah.
I find even doing that myself when I've done, for example, business strategy sessions or family facilitations.
Right.
That's extremely important if you're going to get to consensus with an outcome.
Exactly. Well, that's why the DNA behavior becomes so important too, if you have that information about a full team, because that is gold to somebody like me that preaches business theater, because that's almost a script for you in some ways. When you can really understand what about a person do you need to adapt to. I've always thought that I can't change the way you want to be communicated to and the way you want to see information, but I can control the way I share it with you. I can control the way I do it.
That's
so data and information from DNA behavior gives me a script almost to be better at forming that experience. So that to me is that type of information is gold. Absent that, I have to go get really creative, and I go to things like I look at LinkedIn and I look for clues about, are there clues in your experience? Are there clues in your educational background that may help me understand if you're more on the analytical side, more on the risk-taking side? But then I'm just guessing, and that's never 100% accurate.
No, but that some of that is important anyway. Even if you understand the DNA behavior, I think you've got to do some of that.
Mm-hmm.
So taking this to your new business now of career coaching, the Me Suite, where you're really helping people bring a C-suite mentality to their lives.
Yeah.
And you're doing a lot of podcasts. You're bringing a lot of leaders to the table. I think, what I could see, it's 75, 100 leaders in the last year or so that you've interviewed.
Crazy, yeah.
So I can see that the podcasts brings out your business theater.
Yes.
But also when you're coaching a CEO or a leader, are you teaching them business theater as part of the coaching?
100%. In very specific ways. A lot of my clients are coming to me for longer term career journey development topics, and some are coming for very nearer term spot needs. For example, I have a really important job interview. I'm just about to get my dream job. I want some extra coaching to get prepped for these important job interview meetings. Or maybe somebody has a really important presentation to win an enormous amount of work that will really help them with that promotion. So those are real specific examples where I work with them on business theater, even visioning the way they want the interaction to go. Doing an exercise where they're putting themselves in the shoes of the other person and thinking about that meeting from the other person's perspective, not just our own selfish perspective, and literally scripting and choreographing what we would wish it would look like. Not to be a robot and not to over prepare, but to take Martha Graham, famous dancer back in the day, there's a quote attributed to her, which is, only through 20 years of rigorous training can you be spontaneous as a dancer. And that's kind of my philosophy here, that the more you are prepared and rehearsed with your intention and your vision for the interaction, the more you can be flexible in the moment when things don't go the way you had planned. It sounds counterintuitive, but it is so true.
No, I think that's how sports stars, I'm sure that's how sports stars think of it.
Yeah.
I know when I've played sports, I've learned my lesson when I played sports and at times won something or a tournament. It was because of the preparation.
Right.
And then being able to deal with whatever happened, whether, whether you had a chance moment happened that was bad luck, or actually an opportunity came up, or you just got nervous. You're at that critical moment.
Right.
You've got to know what to do. You can't lose it. Or you're doing a presentation, or you're doing a podcast and the internet cuts out. You can't just lose it. Because things happen. You can't, you can be responsible for yourself, but you can't be responsible for what other people do or the environment. But how you manage it.
That's exactly right.
Is critical. But I think what you're talking about is preparation. But if also you get the business theater stage set right,
yes,
you'll minimize a lot of those risks.
Yes. The other beauty of the business theater mindset is, obviously you're putting yourself in the shoes of the other people, but theater only happens with a cast. Theater requires multiple characters, and that's so realistic to the way business gets done. But in a play and in a movie, all of those actors have to be separate. I can't go play Hugh's role. Hugh can't come play my role. We all have to have our own separate roles to make this story work. And business theater is real similar, that you as a leader have to understand that everybody has a different role to play. They can't replace each other, and they all have to work in concert to get this story and this experience built. So the business theater analog plays really well for leadership too, because of the need that we have to all work in teams.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so taking that forward, Donna, you completed your business DNA discovery.
Yes.
And your style is an initiator, and your take charge and creative. They're your dominant traits, and I think I've mentioned that before. But in getting those results when you did this a year or so ago, what did you feel, or what was a sort of an impact moment out of it, or a highlight, or just hit you in the head, or didn't hit you in the head, but something that was key?
Yeah. Well, I loved seeing the validation of the creativity in there, being what I jokingly call deep undercover in corporate America for 20 years. I was really trying to recharge my creativity in a way. So I really loved seeing that surface in the report. And at the same time, I was starting a business, which was requiring me to get much more operationally oriented, because I was having to put some operational things in place to start my business. And it also, there were two words in the report that made me go, ooh, Donna, this is going to be different for you as a business owner now. And one of them was around my risk of getting bored easily. And the other one was around the fact that I don't like to wallow in the details.
Yeah.
I was already starting to have to wallow in the details of setting up my business. Not just the business operations components of things like scheduling and contracting, but even the minutia of what it takes to deliver the podcast, and do over 100 interviews and all of the operational process components that come together there. So I did have a very deliberate conversations with myself about getting some things outsourced, so that I could put the operational expertise where it resided and free myself up to do the thing that only I can do, and the thing that gave me the most energy. And on the easily bored one, that one really spooked me, because I knew I needed to be careful of burnout, because I wasn't going to go invest in starting up this business and getting everything out there and then decide I'm bored and quit. Right? How do I set myself up to have the continuous momentum and be years and years and years into this new venture? So the DNA behavior was very helpful for me at a very pivotal time of starting this business.
Yeah, I think these things, it's important for everyone to understand what is your 10 out of 10 standout talent, and keep working in the strengths of that. And one of yours is being creative, but comes with that being easily bored.
Yes.
And then the details part, that's not something that you want to do a lot of, but also the strength behind that on the other side of that is also being instinctive and intuitive, which is also needed for knowing instinctively how to set up the business theater itself. I think that's important, what question to ask somebody, because somebody might give you a response when you're doing a podcast interview or in coaching that you didn't expect, and you've got to know what to do.
That's right.
Because if business theater relies on human beings to some, whilst we're predictable to a degree, we're not completely predictable. No. Emotions can take over. So I think you always got to separate out the strengths and then the struggles.
Yes.
But the administrative side of this and putting it together would be where you would get bored and frustrated, I think, probably.
Yeah, exactly. And suck all the energy out of my room. Right.
But I out of your room and out of your theater. But I imagine that the people you attract in generally are fairly interesting people. They spark your curiosity in some way. There's probably a pattern to that. That's what would keep you from getting bored, is the people that you can bring into the theater or to the podcast room.
Yeah, I do think I do truly believe that every person is interesting if you give them a chance to tell their story. So the podcast has given me an incredibly creative platform to just to capitalize on the fact that I am just inherently curious, and everybody is interesting and has something. Their story is helpful to everyone if you just give them a chance to tell the story. I am shocked and amazed about something, about some person every single time I do an interview. Even people that I've known for 25 years will tell me something in a podcast interview that I had no idea about. So shame on me for that, but I do love that part of the process.
So one thing that you're doing now, out of creating this business theatre, bringing in these creative people and enabling them to share their story.
Yeah.
You're liberating them, but you're also creating immense trust.
Wow. Oh, can you see me? I just got chill bumps on my arm.
But you think about the trust that you're building with those people.
Yeah.
And that if you've created the business theatre the right way, the trust that gets created.
Wow.
Because that must be what's been going on when you were doing selling at Accenture, is the trust that got built. And really, at the end of the day, that's the currency for business.
Wow. Yeah, that really means a lot to me, Hugh. One of the ways that I thank the guests is this little phrase that I created at the beginning of this whole journey, which is thank you for trusting me with your story. Because they aren't just coming to share a story with me, it's getting documented and it's getting distributed. And I'm looking for insights into people, not just the generic corporate speak. And some of these do get quite vulnerable. And so you're right. And I feel very proud when you said that. So I appreciate it.
Well, that's what's important as well, as being proud of what you do, being confident in what you do as well, I think is important. But if we take this, Donna, to your identity and who is Donna Peters out there in the world or aspiring to be, what would you say is where your greatest impact can be on other human beings, on the business world?
Yeah.
And how business is done?
Yeah. I want people to use the words when they hear my name. I want people to use words like fair and thoughtful and insightful. And the purpose that I shaped for myself, like why this business, why now, why me? The purpose for me right now at this moment in my life is to help people create the future they want to live in. And part of that is helping them recognize, first of all, what they want that future to look and feel like, and then what are the options that you have available to yourself to go and get them. And so a part of what I hope to be doing through my coaching practice is helping people realize what are all the options available to you if you're able to think a little bit more creatively about your own strengths, your core values, the network that you have, the legacy that you want to leave, but feeling really in control of shaping the future that you want to live in. That is the contribution, the support that I want to be in service of providing.
So where does this concept that we talked about earlier in today about business theatre, where does that fit into that?
Well, theater is an experience, and it's a journey. And when theater, I'm hoping everybody who may hear this episode has had the wonderful opportunity to enjoy, whether it's stage theater or a movie that has completely changed your life, right? And so business is such a significant component of many of our lives that, to me, if I can get this, if I can help business professionals, because those are my clients, they are business professionals. I did not make that clear before. They are business professionals. If I can help them create the theater, like the stage that they want to be living on, that means that they are interacting with the people that they want to be interacting with. They are creating an experience that they want to be creating. And I believe that those types of experiences are life-changing. And if it doesn't seem obvious, just think about a moment that you have had in the arts that changed you forever. And we are at work way more than we are ever at home, especially awake, I mean, right? For business professionals, we are working more than we are at home awake on average. And that's why I think that this is so important.
So is it really about, so I think helping people set the stage for the life that they want, to create the life experiences they want, and even to help them create experiences for others that's going to make their life better, which would be relationships.
Yeah.
So setting the stage is important out of all this.
Okay.
So is it what you're doing is creating, and you're doing this for business professionals, but are you helping them in a way create life theatre, or are you helping them create business theatre? Or is it your business theatre work, and methodology that you've used in your journey so far that's impacted your work at, for example, at Accenture, even the methodology applied in the Me Suite? But is it really then that you're helping people create life theatre for themselves?
Well, I do hope that the lessons and the self-reflection apply to the whole person. I'm entering through the business moments in their lives, but I'm hoping it impacts the whole person, because I also am not a big believer in the concept of work-life balance. That's not a term that I use.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons, but mainly I think that we just have a life first, and then we make choices about how we want to use that life. And one choice is the career that you have. So if you're looking at a hierarchy or a framework, life sits at the top and business is just a component of that. So I'm only, with business theater, I'm only touching on a subset.
So life is bigger than the business, isn't it?
Boy, I hope so. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So in a way, I think what I am seeing, and I'm trying to help you sort of work to the identity, is creating life theatre experiences for business professionals.
Yes.
Which is really helping them set the stage for their life. They've got to go and do it.
Right.
But you can help them set the stage and know how to create experiences for others, whether it's how to communicate with them with impact, or be more empathetic, dealing with a customer or with a family member, how to understand others, how to level set situations. But you're helping them, and obviously find their purpose, but you're helping them in a way set the stage through their life. Yeah. Through a theatre approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. You gave me chill bumps a second time.
So I'm sort of, in bringing together your identity, somewhere it's there about, I think for what I'm hearing, it's definitely got the word theatre in there, experiences, stage, and life. And I think life is bigger than business.
Yes. I love it.
And so somewhere, if we piece that together, that's where your identity, in a way, your identity is and I think creation, because you're helping people create that, right? For themselves, is being the creator of life theatre experiences, right? Or helping people create their own life theatre experiences. Or stage, because I think the stage is what leads to the experiences. And I think that's, to me, Donna, is something then that if I'm playing coach to you for a moment, you could start to bring out more emphatically. Okay. In your website, and as your differentiating proposition. For someone you bring on as to coach. Because if people embrace that, they'll want to work with you, you'll be energized, and they're going to get the special part of you. Right. That's what they're buying. I think at the end of the day, that's the experience that they're buying from you. Right.
Yeah, I love everything about it, Hugh, and the way you brought it together. And that is not featured. I would say I don't feature that in the way I communicate. I have it as an offering, but I don't feature it as just integral to the way I approach coaching. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, because I think part of you going to the next level with this and showing your very unique life, talents, and expertise is to showcase it in this way. And I think when you know what your identity can be, is then you can aspire to be that more and more. In a way, it's achieving the Holy Grail. And you already know how to adapt yourself to achieve it. You did that. You've figured out your strengths. You know your struggles. It's just to work on it. But I think it's about, you're a communicator. It's about messaging this now.
Yeah.
And I think for me, this has lifted the lid for me in working with you more, Donna, and what else can be done out in the community, because creating this business theatre in the business world, or this life theatre, is so important. And it is, your ability to communicate and influence others is a very important factor for success.
Yeah.
So, you're going to have enormous impact, I think, with this. The more that you drill in, and I think that's what we've all got to do, is drill in on that one thing that we're the best in the world at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love you helping me pull it together in such a succinct but a really inspirational way. I'm looking forward to replaying this for myself to get my messages.
Well, like every time I do this, and I feel like I know the person to some degree, but and I knew some of your career, but I've including the acting part.
Yeah.
But it's come out a lot deeper today, and in a way, I've been surprised at what has been uncovered.
Oh, great.
I always am surprised every time. Not that I should be, but I'm always surprised at how much comes out so quickly.
Yeah.
When we go to this place. So we might just start to wrap up here, Donna. Okay. Have you got any other tips that you would like to give the listeners out there, or tell them about a book or a movie they should go and watch, or something they should go and do?
I don't want to tell them to go watch the George Lucas movie I did, because it's not very good. So we won't bore them with that. But for a book, I am assuming that they already may be looking at Leadership DNA. But for a book, I am quite a fan of The One Thing, the Keller book, The One Thing, because it is very good at helping leaders help their teams focus. Yeah. And it's a topic dear to me, because when I look at my profile and it's more about visioning and thinking of bigger ideas, focus is really important to get stuff done. And as a leader, I think, especially if you're a leader veering on the side of visionary, you can often give almost too many ideas to people, and it's hard for them to know exactly what the priorities are at a given moment in time. So if anybody is listening and thinking their profile is a little similar to mine, they may benefit from reading The One Thing. I have found that very helpful. And then I just highly encourage, I find it very helpful about every quarter to revisit these themes it's almost like a checkpoint. I learned the phrase from you, Hugh, of check yourself before you wreck yourself. And so I think a quarterly review is always a really powerful thing to do. Because it's like a horoscope. You kind of read in it what you want to read if you don't check back in often and remind yourself what really was in the report.
And I think to tie in your message there with the book, The One Thing, that if you don't focus on that, then you will wreck yourself. And
so even more evidence.
and so we will leave it there, Donna. But thank you so much for your insights today. And I am so inspired by the theatre that can be created, and hopefully I can learn to do more of it as well, to help greater experiences be provided to people out there in the world.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you holding up a mirror for me, Hugh. I really appreciated the coaching.
Thank you, Donna.